Hey friends, Roger Sipe coming at you from Madison, Wisconsin. I hope that you are well. It is good to be talking with you again. It is September 1st when we're posting this content, the beginning of the third of 2020. I'd like to start off by welcoming you to our new blog and YouTube. This is kind of going to be our home where we will weekly be posting free content for you in a way that's going to be super helpful. What we wanted to start out with is we've really got the rest of this year planned out. We've got kind of the editorial calendar all laid out for you, and what we really want to do with this is we want to help you take this year, the craziest year ever, and finish it in a way that you can feel good about. Stick with me for the next 8 or 9 minutes in this video and you'll see what's going on, and I think you'll find this will be a really good starting place for a strong finish to 2020. So if you're getting this, you're in one of two situations. Some of you, this may be the first time you're watching a video like this. If so, welcome. We're super excited to have you here as part of this community. There's a bunch of you, however, who actually know me. And you may actually be sitting here going, hey, Roger, good to see your face again. Where you been the last 5 months? Yeah, it's been 5 months since the last time we posted any content like this. Back in March when the pandemic, quarantine, COVID madness was still in its infancy. We did a little 3-part series about keeping your marbles. And that was super well received. And then, I'm aware, we kind of went a little bit radio silent on you. I hope you don't feel abandoned. I'll tell you where we were. Number one is we were retooling, like many of you had to do, right, as a business that had, for 2 decades, been built upon running around the country, giving talks to groups of people. Well, back in March, both running around the country and groups of people were sort of shut down. So we had to learn some things ourselves, and so that was part of where we've been. But then I'll tell you the big part of where we've been that's going to benefit you and that you'll want to pay attention to is that we, my team and I, have really been in the laboratory. We have been learning and crafting what works in this environment in terms of keeping your head on straight so that you can achieve great things, enjoy that process, and repeat that systematically. And we have learned a ton you're going to get it here on this blog, on this YouTube channel, in little bits and pieces for $0. So yeah, stick around. Right, here's what we had to do. We had to, partly because of desire and partly just because of necessity, is we've become much more of a coaching organization. Over the last 6 months, we have developed intensive relationships with now hundreds of individuals that we're working with in one-on-one coaching relationships, and all of those have become tremendous case studies. And we've really seen, one of the things that we knew we needed to do is kind of go, all right, so we need to put this to the test. If we're going to be working with business people, we've been, teaching people about how to upgrade their mental game for years. And hey, we should probably find out before we go public on YouTube, social media, and everywhere, if what we do with people, if it stands up under heavy fire. And I don't know about you, but this has been a year from a mental perspective, heavy fire. More question marks, more turbulence, more unrest, more potential for depression, confusion, and all kinds of things that it's been challenging for a lot of people. And so here's what we've seen. In a few minutes, I'm going to share with you the first lesson that we've seen from people who are winning right now, because the winning that we're seeing is actually at an all-time high. Biggest thing that I have noticed, and that my team has noticed, maybe you have too, is that there's a gap. There's always been a gap between people who are winning, winning up and to the right for you, versus struggling, right? There's people who are winning, there's people who are struggling in whatever they do, and there's always a gap. Well, what we've seen is that gap has grown. The people who are struggling more than they've ever struggled, but the people who are winning seem to be winning at a rate that is dramatically accelerated and bigger than ever before. I'm not going to take the time to get into a whole bunch of specific detailed case studies in this video. Over the rest of this year, we will definitely do that, because here's the thing. I have become just unbelievably humble and blessed by the progress of our clients to a person. We now have thousands of coaching interactions under our belts just in the last 6 months. And what we're seeing is that literally almost to a person, the people that we work with are getting results like they've never gotten before. And it's all because of what they're doing with their head. I mean, I can tell you stories of sales professionals who are parts of territories. This is a specific case study that you'll probably get in about 2 or 3 weeks. Part of a territory that's down anywhere between 5 and 11%. And this individual, who's been a client of mine for several years now, is actually up almost 50%. He's having his best year ever. And actually really having a good, enjoyable time doing it. He's having to work harder to keep his head on straight, but it's going really, really well. And we're seeing that all over the place. So what I wanted to do with this lesson, or with this video today, is this is going to be the first of legitimately 17 lessons over the rest of this year that you'll be able to get for $0 in a way that's really easy to fit into your schedule. This is where I've seen all of our successful clients start. And it might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but it's really, really obvious. Where it all starts with winning versus struggling is with accepting your situation exactly as it is. Yeah, I didn't get this until recently, but all of the people that we've worked with intensively and done a lot of research with now, they've all started with accepting the situation exactly as it is, without trying to modify it, without trying to argue with it, sugarcoat it, or varnish it, or blow it out of proportion. They accept it exactly as it is. And I thought this was super interesting because this was literally the very first lesson that I ever got in the world of personal development. When I got into sales as a 19-year-old college student, I was given a book called Now Is Your Time to Win. And it was the story of a guy who had early success in sales, in business, and then kind of crashed and burned, and then sort of turned it all around again. And it's a good story, and very impactful for me. And the first lesson that he taught was to accept the thing that he did to turn things around after he got his car repossessed and was sleeping on his friend's couch for months at a time, and because he had lost all of the huge amounts of money that he had made, was that he didn't start making progress until he looked himself in the mirror and just owned up to the situation and accepted it exactly as it was, right? Byron Katie talks about how when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. I've always thought that was great. And not accepting the situation exactly as it is just one very obvious form of arguing with reality. And that's a little bit hard to go, okay, well, what do you mean? How do I go about doing it? How do I just accept the situation? Well, I would tell you that it's easier to do this by knowing what not to do and simply avoiding it. Okay, fundamentally, accepting your situation looks like you looking in the mirror and just accepting responsibility for making your deal what it is. It does not mean blaming. This is the first thing that I would encourage you to avoid. If you're like, okay, where do I start? Where do I begin this process of taking where I'm at and making the rest of this year something that I can actually feel good about? Stop blaming. One way that people don't accept their situation is by placing blame or accepting blame where it doesn't exist. be on the lookout for blaming. But listen, I'll tell you what, man. If you want to be a blamer, if you want to play the blame game, let me tell you, you'll get tons of support. I see that's a huge part of what's just going on right now. Is, man, like everybody's blaming the pandemic for their struggles. The Democrats are blaming the Republicans. The Republicans are blaming the Democrats. America's blaming the Chinese. China is blaming America. Everybody's blaming everybody else. And here's the thing: if you're doing that, if you're blaming an entity or a person or an authority, or if you're placing blame, you might be right. You might win that argument. My question is it an argument that you really want to win? And truthfully, is it an argument that you really even want to be having? Placing blame simply, it takes energy, man. Like the act of going, you're the reason why I'm having so much trouble. To do that requires a ton of energy that is, I'm sure, better spent in someplace else, right? So if I was your coach, I would tell you that, yeah, the blame that you're placing on something else, you very well might be right. So what? It's not helping, and you can give up blaming anytime that you want. I would also tell you that accepting blame is very different from accepting responsibility. Understand, I'm not trying to say that all the trouble that's going on, all the everything that's happening in our world around us right now, I'm certainly not saying that you're to blame for it. I'm certainly not saying it's your fault. But I will tell you that the things that you've got to deal with right now, they are your responsibility. Your business and your results, they're your responsibility. Your family is your responsibility. And when you own that, when you go, okay, I may not be to blame, but I am responsible. This in Jack Canfield's great book, The Success Principles, the very first principle is to accept 100% responsibility for the quality of your own life. When you do that, what happens is it just opens your eyes. It causes you to be able to see reality and the truth of what's going on in a way that you can actually see the opportunity in it. And it also frees up a ton of energy for you to move towards that opportunity. So number one, stop blaming. How do you accept your situation just as it is? Number one, stop blaming. And then number two, stop waiting around. Stop waiting around for things to get better. Because if you're doing that, you're just keeping yourself stuck. And you know what? Who knows? It doesn't matter when things get better. It matters when you get better. I'll tell you that this waiting around thing, I get a little worked up about this because I'm kind of talking to myself here. I definitely, back in April, I 100% found myself as a producer, as a leader, as a business person. I noticed that I was waiting around for things to get. I was waiting for quarantine to end. I had this story in my head that, oh, this will all be over in a few weeks or a few months, and so I'll just ride this out. And I was waiting for things to get better, waiting for things to change before I got moving. And then at the end of April, when we had, well, it was a challenging month, as you can imagine, I went, you know what? I got to stop waiting, because the truth of the matter is, I don't know when things are going to get better. And you know what? We don't need things to get better for us to make something out of the rest of this experience here. And if you're finding yourself still waiting around, well, I'll get going when the economy fully reopens. I'll get going when there's a vaccine. If in any way you're waiting around for something, knock it off. Get moving, okay? Take responsibility for your deal and just start to get moving on something. When you do that, you become free and you become forward moving. And that puts you in the right mental place to be guided and to start to develop momentum, all right? If you want this year to end up being something that you can feel good about, accept this situation exactly as it is. Stop blaming. Stop waiting around. And if I can help, please let me know. We've actually become quite good at helping guide people on this journey that we call 2020, and we're super excited to help you out with it too. Listen, come back. Check us out next week. We'll be back here every Tuesday with some good video like this, and I think it'll be helpful for you. So reach out, stay in touch, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your week.